we've never talked about this off camera really per se, if the gift of tongues is still in use today and to what extent. But I had someone come up to me and was telling me like, borderline, you're not really saved if you don't speak in tongues. That was kind of the vibe.
You always married the wrong person.
But I had this like Travis Scott mask, like, during COVID, I like cut it up and trashed it because I was like, you know what? This is like demonic.
The only thing that matters to God is souls.
Honestly, this has been a topic that's been on my mind, and I've changed my opinion on it. I'm gonna ask you a question.
Oh.
What's one thing you feel like you've like changed your mind on in your walk with Christ, and why?
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the One King podcast. Today is a very special episode. Today I have one of my best friends, business partner, travel partner. He is a multifaceted, hardworking CEO and a recent husband. Nolan, welcome to the pod.
You forgot to add the millionaire part in there.
Oh, really?
I'm just
this is news to me, bro. I'm just like, I did not know. We're gonna jump right in. All right.
Okay.
So
jump into
who are you? Because nobody knows who you are.
Yeah. So no, my name's. How do you want me to answer that question? Like, I'm not trying to be like that, but that's kind of a broad question.
No, it's a broad question. Okay. So Nolan gets to be the first guest. Typically, we're business partners. We have a wedding business together. We do wedding video, and most of our conversations probably consist of the business. So this gives us an excuse to kind of have a conversation outside of that, in our lives. And I think it's always good just kind of refresh, and I could get a better opportunity to know you more. You know what I mean?
That's true.
So yeah. So let's just jump in. What is your testimony? Like, when someone comes up to you and says, why do you believe God to be, what you believe in, what you're consistently chasing after, your core fundamental beliefs, why do you believe that? Is there a moment in time that you met God? What would you tell them? What would you say?
Yeah. So that's an interesting question that you ask, because I think of my walk with God, and I can't speak for everyone. I know people have had different experiences with God, but I like to look at my walk with God as overall a journey. Like, genuinely, I feel like God is still doing something in my life to this day, and he's constantly changing me. Like, where I'm at in my journey today is different than where I was a year ago. My walk with God hasn't been like, oh, he saved me and then everything changed and then I just move on as a changed self. My walk has been, God did change me. I did have an encounter with God, and then he's still changing me. Like, to this day, right. Things are constantly changing. I'm a different guy than I was a year ago in a lot of ways. And especially if you look back like 5 years, God's changed me a lot. And, I think he's going to continue to change me. But kind of to look back on when the process of changing really started. I specifically remember, I grew up in a Christian household, and like my parents are believers. So I always had an idea of God.
Yeah.
But I never really remember seeking God for myself at all through really middle school. Maybe at the beginning of high school slightly. Maybe I would like read my Bible once a year or something.
Yeah.
But like not really. I never really had a relationship with God. I always thought he was real, but I never really considered how it impacted my life directly. But kind of my story is it's a funny story because it's something that I don't even use now, but it was TikTok back in the day. I used to watch a lot of TikTok now.
Fiend.
Yeah, I was a TikTok fiend. I mean, I still like short form content, but
yeah,
I don't really watch TikTok that much anymore, but I used to watch it a ton. And there was this one TikToker named David Ladding. I think he still makes stuff. Yeah. I've seen some of his stuff. But real passionate guy for the gospel. And essentially what happened is his videos just kept appearing in my feed. And I was like, okay, this dude's like passionate. I don't know. This is just not how I've known God to be. I've just kind of, seen him as like a side thing, like something, as a religion. But this guy's like actually passionate about God and genuinely, I don't know. He just seemed so different to me at the time. And I was like, I want to know what this is about. Yeah. So I kept watching the videos and I was like, I really got to start to take my walk with God seriously. I think at the time, I really didn't look at it like I was not following God, more just like I actually want to start to take this seriously. So I remember deciding, okay, I actually want to be baptized. So that was my first big step. I remember deciding that I publicly wanted to declare my life as a Christian and show people outwardly that I was a follower of God. So I decided to get baptized, and that was a really influential moment in my life, primarily because it was a great start to get involved with the church. It was a great outward display that, I was following God. And after I got baptized, I basically I felt like I almost caught on fire for God, at least for a short season. And what that looked like is dramatic life change really quickly. Really? And so some things I can think of is as I remember cutting out so many things in my life that I felt like were bad for me. I remember making TikToks and making videos about like God and how he's changed my life. I remember getting involved at church because before I wasn't even going to youth group. I wasn't really involved in the church. I would go on Sundays because my mom would make me go, but I wasn't really involved at all. And so I remember just like all of these things started to cascade in my life and just change so quickly. And I really think that was the first moment when I really felt like I had a relationship with God. And I really think this whole time he's been chasing me down. I think even whenever I look back at the years of growing up, he was chasing me down, trying to show me his love. But this was the first time that I reached my hand out and wanted to accept some of it. And then really since then, it's just been a journey of learning a lot, of changing a lot. There are things that I thought whenever I first came to God to be like 100% certain. And then now I feel completely differently. Yeah. And then I changed again. And so it's just been like a whole...
Like one of the biggest things that you would say, like, at that time you wholeheartedly believe, but now you're like, I don't know if that's something.
Okay. One thing that instantly comes to mind is I've actually never talked about this publicly, but like tongues. And I know people have different opinions on like if the gift of tongues is still in use today and to what extent, like praying in the Spirit. But like, I don't want to discount this because I think God was still working in my life. But I had someone come up to me and was telling me like, borderline, you're not really saved if you don't speak in tongues. That was kind of the vibe. Wow. They didn't exactly say that, but it was like, I don't know if you've ever heard, it's called being baptized in the Holy Spirit is what a lot of people call it.
I've heard of it.
So I don't know how you feel about that. And this isn't a podcast to talk about like, to get super right deep into it, if it's right or wrong. Yeah. But at the time I was like, keep in mind, this time period, I really didn't know that much about like actually following God. So I was just like going intense. So anything that I found out was like kind of Christian, I turned the intensity up to 100. So I was going crazy with tongues. Yeah. I thought that I was like a tongue wizard. Like,
wait, so you thought like you were speaking in tongues?
I don't know what it was. This is the interesting thing, but I felt like I was, I don't know if it was actually something from God at the time, but like I thought that like, I don't know. I kind of have a different opinion on it.
This is actually crazy because I did not know about this like, at all. That's crazy. So you did that like by yourself or like at church? Or like...
So here's where I thought it was wrong. Okay. Let me back up here. Yeah. I'm not at all saying that me praying in tongues, whether it was actually something that was from God or not, was wrong. But where I think I got it wrong, and really what I'm only trying to speak on, is I remember doing like a live stream where I was like, I'm going to teach you how to speak in tongues, I think. And I remember making, not a live stream, but I was doing like TikTok videos, like, let me teach you about praying in tongues. And actually to this day, maybe I shouldn't say this on air, but like I'm pretty sure that TikTok's still up. So if you really did your research, you could probably find this TikTok.
Yeah.
But
if you find it, send it to me. I want to see that.
Yeah, he wants to clip it for his pod.
Yeah.
Regardless of if tongues is, praying in the Spirit is real or not, I think there is probably some realness to that, and I'm not discounting that. I'm just saying that I was using it in the complete wrong way, and I thought like I unlocked this like superpower was the
you
vibe.
Hit the next tier of Christianity.
I thought I hit the next tier of closeness to God by praying in tongues.
Wow.
But I think it is something where one thing to keep in mind and that I've been learning is a true test of, your relationship with God is not your gifts, but your character.
Yeah.
And so I really think that, sometimes we tend to think gifts are a representation of, your relationship with God, but I really think it's character.
Yeah. And
character, I think, takes a lot longer to build than gifts. Gifts can come and go like that, and I really think they are from God. But character, I think, that's the hard work. That's the deep work. And I think that's what God's been changing in my life over the last few years. Yeah,
that's really good. That's honestly really encouraging. So I know some of these questions could potentially be leading because I know some about your story, of course, but I know you have mentioned in the past how you have had those things that you were 100% on, that maybe you regret, that maybe you've taken back. And I don't know how much you're comfortable with talking about.
No, I'll say it. No, I'm trying.
Yeah. But I know that you said that there have been times that you regretted maybe saying you believe this to be true about Christianity. Like, you're not a Christian if you do this, or you have to do this in order to be a Christian,
Yeah.
you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I know you said you've maybe potentially regretted that. Can you maybe give some stories or some instances
Yeah.
where that was the case?
Yeah, I have a story that instantly comes up into mind. I actually have two. Well, I'll start with the first one. And I'm going to tread lightly here because these people that I'm referring to in this story are people that are still actively in my life today. So I don't want to
Right.
blast them.
Right.
But I'm going to give the story. I'm not
Yeah.
going to give any details
Yeah.
on the person. I was on the way to a conference with some of my friends, and they were talking about actually, why am I forgetting the name? What's the nicotine? It's not tobacco that you put in your mouth.
I know what you're talking about. It's like the chewing.
Yeah, no, but it's not the tobacco. It's the you put it
dip.
inside your mouth. No,
Dip,
no,
right?
no. It's not the dip. That's the tobacco. There's one that's for nicotine, and it's like Zen.
Oh.
Okay, Zen. Yes,
Oh, yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was Zen. But so basically, I had some boys I was going down to a Christian conference with, and they were just talking about Zen, and they were. And my friend bought some. He was he was doing it. We were going to the Christian conference, and at the time, I remember I can't remember if it was on the way back or on the way down to the conference, but I just remember crashing. I was like, all right, bro. So we're going to a Christian conference and you're doing Zen. I was like, nah. And then we got in this whole argument about it. I was like, it's definitely sin, 1000%. No debate about it.
But you didn't
drugs.
say why.
Well, I mean, I had my reasoning then why.
Yeah.
I thought it was sin, maybe for myself, but I feel like what's changed in me a lot is, don't hear me wrong, I'm not doing Zen, and I'm not suggesting that people do Zen. I think what I realized is that everyone's in a different walk with the Lord. Everyone's at a different place in their walk with God. And whether it's right or wrong, it might be wrong for me at this point, but it may not be wrong for them at this point. And what I mean by that is they may not be at a point in their walk with God to where it's time for them to put that down yet. And maybe it's not even necessarily bad for them in their walk. But it's unfair for me to make a general judgment and say that it's bad for all people when there's not even something directly sinful about it. Because Paul talks a lot about freedom in the Bible. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. You know, a lot of things are permissible, but they necessarily may not be good. And where I think that comes into value is realizing that something else might be permissible for someone else, but it may not be permissible or good for you. It might be permissible, but it may not be good for you. And so I think one thing that I've realized in my walk is let me back up. I'm not at all saying that the Zen is good or that you should do Zen or that it's even okay.
Right.
I'm more saying the way I handled that situation and the way I was so down, it's wrong if you do this, was, I don't think it was Christ-like. It was my pride, to be honest. I thought that I was better because I didn't do Zen. And the other story that comes to mind is music. I kind of remember being I've gone through a lot of different phases with music of what's right or wrong, where's the limit? And I remember one of my homeboys was in the car and I was like, yo, this is whenever I first became a Christian. I was like, yo, if it's got curse words in it, you can't play it in my car. That was the vibe. I told him, I was like, don't play anything with curse words in my car. And so I really don't think that was out of love either. That was just out of religion at the end of the day. And I'm not at all suggesting that you should listen to a lot of music with curse words. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the way I handled it and the way I was so down hard on it was not necessarily the way that Christ talks about it in the Bible.
Yeah. Your heart behind telling them this is what has to go was more out of, hey, you're not a Christian if you're doing this kind of, and not I want you to respect me. Is that kind of what you're saying? Or is that, because I think there is an instance where maybe, it would be respectful to me in that scenario. Let's not play that kind of music in my car or, around me. I think that's a fair thing in a relationship to do, but it depends on the heart behind it. And I think if your heart was in a religious way,
not exactly. That's exactly what it was. Yeah. It was all about being religious and seeming like I was the best to what I'm saying. And I'm just trying, I have to tread lightly here because I don't want to communicate the wrong thing.
Right.
But what I'm trying to communicate is that the spirit of religiousness that can come upon you, where it's just I'm just trying to seem like I'm doing the right thing, but my character isn't even to that point yet. I don't think that's from God, just to seem like you're better than other people. When really, at the time, there were things that I was doing unrelated to this that were wrong. And really, that's what I should have been focused on.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have been focused on telling him that Zen is bad, that Zen is sinful. When who knows? it may not even necessarily be wrong for him. There's not a verse that specifically says you can't do sin if you're a Christian. So so we know that it's not inherently definitely 100% wrong. I was too worried about something that may or may not be good for him when I had things that were clearly wrong in my life that I should have been focused on. It was just, I think you're right. It's about the heart behind it. And I don't think that you can't ever have conversations with your friends about things you think that are bad for them. I don't want to put my convictions on other people, you know, especially with personal things like music or tobacco, or there's lots of things like that are personal convictions. There are certainly things that are definitely sin for all people. I think we could agree upon that. But
for sure,
I think you also have to be careful about things that God's convicted you of right now. Like, for example, let's say eating unhealthy food, but he may not have convicted someone else of that right now. So I think you have to be cognizant of that and your why behind things, you know?
Right. We had this conversation at Bible study the other night, but I kind of want to revisit it because I don't remember exactly what we talked about. But
was this last night?
Yeah. It was last night. No, it was literally last night. No, but at what point is it okay to place your convictions on someone else? Is there a point of that? Or at what point do you call out someone else's sin?
Like, It honestly, this has been a topic that's been on my mind, and to the whole point of like the changing thing, I've changed my opinion on it. I was once at a point where like I definitely thought you should always call other people's sin. If you see it, you're being a good friend by calling it out. Then I got to a point of like, you should probably never call other people's sin. Just love them. And then let God do that.
Yeah.
Then I read the scriptures. I was like, okay, that's not true, because that's not even what the scriptures say. Yes, I think the primary thing to do is love them. But the scriptures don't say never call a brother out. The scriptures say help a brother, basically. I mean, so that's obviously not true either. And so I think there is some sort of I wouldn't call it a middle ground, but a right way of doing it. I kind of want to answer your question better, but could you give like a scenario of like how to handle it? And then maybe I can.
Okay. I'll just throw out a wild card example. Okay. So if there was, let's just pull back on the music situation.
Okay.
We'll pull off that. So say I was consistently listening to music that was talking about drugs, that was talking about sex, that was talking about, you know, very worldly themes, and you thought that's a sin. And this is maybe this is not a good example because there's arguments back and forth on if I should or should not be listening to that. I would, we're not going to get into that, but
you could get it. I'll give my opinion on the situation, but it may not be.
I'm going to give a new example. Because, that one's a whole like can of worms.
Are you saying if it's something that's definitely wrong or something that could be wrong? Because I think the whole music thing, that's where it gets confusing. Because I don't necessarily think it's 100% wrong to listen to music that has bad things in it, but I don't necessarily think it's 100% right to listen to music that has bad things in it. Right. So I think you have to. I think that's where it comes down to knowing what's best for you. It's like alcohol. I mean, you could get, I don't know where you want to get into.
Yeah. I feel like, and maybe this is like answering my own question here, but if you notice somebody who's potentially listening to something or doing something that you feel convicted on, I feel like the best thing to do in that situation is open the conversation, not come in so hard, not be like,
exactly,
here's my conviction, I'm going to tell you what to do. And if you don't do it, you're not a Christian, or you're, you know. But I think the best thing to do in that situation is probably open up the conversation to say, hey, like, why do you listen to this music? And maybe that sounds judgmental, but like, this is a hard topic. People argue back and forth. Should you be listening to this or not? How do you feel about it? Yeah. And I think that's a good way to open it up. Yeah. And just to have like a friendly discussion about it. Cause like, I don't think it's ever right to sit there and come down hard on someone in that way. Cause we're not the judge at the end of the day. So
absolutely. First off, are they in a place right now to where this is something that God is leading them to? The second thing is it even wrong for them? I don't know. And that's and
that's only something I feel like they and God can answer. That's not, you know.
But I think to your point, I think you brought up an amazing point. It's good to have conversations about things. Listen, I mean, me and you don't agree on every single conviction topic. You have different convictions than me, and we don't handle every single situation the same way. But that doesn't mean that we can't talk about it and say, my conviction is XYZ and my conviction is XYZ. And then we can each talk about why we feel convicted that way. And then maybe we'll each learn something. Maybe it will spur one of us on to change, or maybe both of us to have a healthier perspective on it.
For sure.
You know?
Yeah. To be completely transparent, I honestly didn't think we'd go here. But there was a time I specifically remember that, you know, I don't want to like jump in, sound like I'm calling you out or anything, but there was a time I know we had gotten into a pretty solid back and forth driving one time listening to music.
Yeah.
And we were talking about the topic of music. Should we or should we not listen to it? And at the time, I was very much, and I think I'm still somewhat in that phase, but cutting out a lot of like secular music and cutting out these things because I was trying to be very focused on what am I filtering into my life, because, you know, I was still dealing with a lot of, you know, the lust issues and getting out of that. And so on the edge of getting out of that, there was a lot of things I was just cutting out. And I was like, all right, you know, these have to go, music has to go. And whenever I would ride in the car with you, sometimes you would listen to certain music that I realized was kind of a trigger for me. And so I remember we had this conversation and it shifted a lot, I feel like, in our relationship and our perspective of each other, at least in my opinion, because I remember that day specifically, like it was just super, it was just very vivid. Like I was like, I don't know if I should have mentioned that. I don't know if I should have said, hey, can we change the music? Because I felt like it was a hard conversation. I felt like it was unnecessary and it didn't really change that much. And then I realized later on, you could kind of say like, you came back on it and you were like, hey, like, I appreciate that we had that conversation.
Yeah.
What was your perspective on that situation? And how do you think that shifted your perspective on convictions and music?
Yeah, great. Good. Yeah. I'm glad you brought this up because I think we've never talked about this off camera really per se, but it's good to talk about. So to be fully transparent, it didn't change my perspective a ton. Yeah. And my perspective isn't different today per se. I guess I shouldn't say it didn't change my perspective. It didn't change my perspective completely, but I feel like, at least for me, it made me think about it, to be honest. Yeah. And like, it just wasn't something I was thinking about at the time. But first off, I would never want to make you stumble as a friend. So I never want to listen to anything that make you stumble. And the second thing is also myself. Like, what am I listening to? What am I watching? Things like that. I've gone back, like music, for example. I used to, whenever I first came to God, I was hardcore. I was like, I remember, made this crazy example, but I had this like Travis Scott mask, like, you know, during COVID.
Oh, really?
I was like, I cut it up and trashed it because I was like, you know what? This is like demonic. Like,
Yeah.
And then I got to a point where I kind of flipped the script. I was like, any music, whatever, I don't care. And I've kind of recently came back to a healthier perspective, I think, of where I listen to non-Christian music, but I also listen to Christian music. And I think there's a healthy place. It's not that everything you listen to is going to knock you over and throw you off your path, but it's also that you're watching what you're stepping on all the time. Does that make sense? Like think about it like walking up a mountain, right? Maybe this is a bad example. I could totally get cooked with this, but I'm thinking of this like walking up a mountain, right? Maybe listening to music with language or to something where it has a bad lyric is like stepping on a rock that could make you slip. So it's not that you should never step on any rocks that could make you slip, but you have to be cognizant, because if you're always stepping on rocks that can make you slip, you're going to slip and fall down the mountain. So
I see what you mean.
So maybe this is a bad example, and everyone's at a different place. So I'm not trying to say like this is what all believers should do, but I've kind of had to come to a healthy perspective of like, hey, what's honoring to God? And I think there is a healthy way of looking at it. And I think, just out of curiosity, to kind of flip the question, did the conversation that we had back then, did it change your perspective at all?
I think at the time, I don't think I ever really have brought up anything like to another person like that. I'm pretty like easygoing. If it's bothering me, it's going to be kind of hard to tell, I feel like, for the most part. Yeah. It helped me know that you could trust me to have a conversation with you, even if it's about you. I think that was helpful. Like just to know like, hey, we can talk about this, and that was, I think that's always a healthy thing in any relationship. For sure, different convictions for different people. And I'm not going to ever sit here and say like no Christian should ever listen to anything like that. For me, for myself, I think it has made a difference, but that doesn't mean that any other Christian should or should not do that. I would never say that this is, the Bible doesn't say only listen to Christian music, it doesn't specifically say that. It's all between you and God. Is what you're doing bringing you closer to God? I think that can be a question that we can really wrestle with and take to heart. So
Paul says everything is permissible, but is it good or not? It's okay to have a conversation with a brother and say, hey, I know this is permissible for you, but is it good for you? And then see what they say. You may not know it's good for them, but it's okay to have a conversation and ask.
I think that's a good way to open the conversation, and in a non-judging way.
Because I think what you have to realize is you could be wrong as the person asking. I've been wrong. I've asked people about things that now I go back on, I'm like, I was asking about the wrong thing. I don't know if that makes sense.
And I think you have to be very careful when you go into those conversations, because you never know. If you come in hard, you could honestly do a reverse effect and push them further from where they need to be going, because they're like, well, this person's like telling me I can't do this. Well, now I'm going to do it more. Like,
yeah.
you know,
And let me add something too. I think there is a slight difference between, with a brother. I think there is a difference between something that they're doing that is sinful and something that's permissible but may or may not be good for them. If you see a friend, he's talking to you about how he watches pornography, we can agree that that's sin. So maybe you handle that conversation a little bit differently. I mean, yes, you can still ask them about it, but you know that that's sin.
Right. Yeah.
But something like drinking, I'm not saying getting drunk, I'm saying just drinking, may or may not be sin for them. So it's a different conversation than something that is something that's definitely sin is different than a conversation of whether it's good for them or not.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's true. So we kind of went down a rabbit hole, for sure. I think we
probably have to cut some of this.
Somehow ended up, this is definitely getting chopped up a little bit, but we've had really good conversation. I did not expect to go to some of these places, but I want to jump back to kind of the beginning with a conversation, a little point that if someone came up to you and said, your experience with God has just been a crazy coincidence. Your experience has been just, emotions or feelings, and you got baptized because you wanted to get closer to those feelings. Like, what would you say to them?
Yeah. This reminds me of where we're having that conversation at that coffee shop in Athens.
In Athens, crazy flex to bring that up. No, we were on a work trip, but
I think there's a lot of ways you can take this. You can take it like on the personal experience route, or you can take it on the historical route. But I'm going to take it on the personal experience route.
Okay.
Because I feel like that's kind of what you're asking.
Yeah.
You're not necessarily asking for the facts.
No, I'm kind of asking like what proved it to you?
What proves it to me?
Yeah.
It's an interesting question because there is a verse, and I'm probably crazy misquoting this, so maybe you need to cut this.
Okay.
But it's like something like those who, oh my gosh, this is not the verse. I'm just trying to recall what it is. It's like those who have been blinded will not see that Christ is the stone or something.
Oh yeah.
I know what
you're saying. I can pull it up. Okay. I think you're talking about 1 Corinthians 1:18. Says, for the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to those who are being saved, it is the power of God. Is that kind of the gist?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
say.
So I think it's interesting that the scriptures say this, because to people who don't have a relationship with Christ and to God, to them it seems like a bunch of foolishness. Like it's just a bunch of like religion and rules. We were talking to someone a couple months ago. We had a conversation at dinner with someone who was not a Christian. And we were talking a lot about the scriptures, and a lot of it just seems foolish to them. Like, why, obviously this verse is talking about the cross specifically, like Jesus, it just seems like a, fable. But I think it could go for a lot of scripture, because the message of scripture is just like ridiculousness to them. But I think because of God's love in my life and how I've seen him show up in my life, I think that to me, it makes sense. To me, the scriptures, like there's no other way. But God, like, and I'm not trying to sound, irreverent or anything, but like, there's no other way than God's love in my life. If it wasn't for God's love, where would I be today? And I just don't know how my life would have played out if it wasn't for his love. And I even think a big thing that's not talked about is, we think about personal encounters with God. Well, we think a lot about like genie moments, but how about the times when people who love God and who have a relationship with God have shown up for you in your life? To me, that might be more of a sign that God is there and present. I mean, I have so many people and so many encounters in my life where people who love God and who have a relationship with him have shown up in my life in unexpected, generous, helpful, loving ways that has played a huge role in my life and my walk with God. And I think that sometimes we, when we talk about our encounters with God, we just instantly think of like all the miracles. But how about just think about your whole life? Like think about all the times people who have a relationship with God have showed up for you.
That's true. I think that's a good point, which actually plays into my next question hilariously. How has our friendship changed your walk with God?
It's made it way worse, to be honest. No, I think a good question. And I want to hear your answer on this too. I know you're the questioner. But
to be honest, I think in a lot of ways for me, I just don't have a lot of friends that are as close as you. And I feel like we have laid the groundwork for transparency and like being genuinely like a brother for each other. Like I think that's something I highly value, and I think has just played a massive role in my walk in the last several years and everything. Just being able to like have those honest conversations whenever I'm struggling and say, hey, like, can I just get some prayer right now? Or, you know, you just get some advice, you know? And I think you've shown up in a lot of ways in that way. Yeah. That's kind of what I would say. I'm not like, you know, you came in and all of a sudden, like, you know, I'm a Christian now, but before you, I wasn't, or something.
Dang, like weird. Just had to cook me like that.
I'm not, you know, trying to give you that much credit, but I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Now, what event in your life was the most impactful? What like,
as a whole, or like
no.
So you're like
with God. What's like one of the most impactful memories? I know it.
Gosh. You know mine.
But I suggested it. No, I'm just.
You know mine too.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Belonging Co. The Nashville trip.
That was a pretty big one. Yeah.
No, that's irrelevant. No, hold on. Let's back up.
Okay.
Cut this out. No. So you asked me, Kai, you know, how has our friendship played a role in my walk with God? Was that the question?
Yeah.
That was not the question.
That was 100% the question. Let me read it okay. Word for word. So it says, how has our friendship changed your relationship with God?
Oh, okay. That was
maybe that is a different question. I don't know.
Yeah. I think in our friendship, one thing that is a high value, to your point of kind of bouncing off what you were saying about our friendship, is there's a lot of trust in our friendship, I think, in my opinion. Like, I feel like we've created the ability to be open and transparent with each other. And I think another thing that has been good for both of us is obviously we own a business together, so there are different aspects to it all. But I think we also push each other just in general. I think I can even think of a scenario right now where I have a project that we're working on, and like, you know, Kai's kind of pushed me on it. And I can also think on times where I've pushed Kai, and like, I think that if it wasn't for that friendship, that I probably wouldn't be in as good of a place. And I think you've also challenged me on things, like, to your point, just so many different categories in my life. You've challenged me, and maybe you were right, maybe you were wrong, maybe you were just challenging me for the fun of it.
Right.
Like, we've also created a friendship where we just, like, I think it's, you know, our personalities, but we just challenge each other on things that we may not even agree with sometimes. And then I also think influence, like, there are things that you do in your life just naturally I picked up in my life because you do it and it works for you. You didn't really suggest it for me. It's just like I started doing it too, and then it just started working.
Yeah.
And like, I would bet that probably goes both ways. Like, I think I've seen you, even since we became friends, even from a friend's perspective, you pick up new habits or things that I feel like, I mean, I guess you could have picked it up anywhere, but I think because of our friendship, it's changed you.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
No, I agree 100%. I think in a lot of ways, like, to be honest, your commitment to like working hard is something that I really admire. And I think that pushes me to say, hey, like, you know, if Nolan can pick up all that he does and work hard at it, and, you know, balance all these things, then I could probably not procrastinate so much and work harder. You know what I mean? Like, it does drive me a little more. And I think that's like super helpful. And as I think, like you said, like, the accountability has been a major part of our business. Now it's like, I know I'm not only letting the client down, but I'm also letting down you, or, you know, if I don't get it on time. So to
be honest, I'm not trying to get out of your journey here, but I've known you for years now. And really in the last 2 years, you've changed significantly, to be honest. Yeah. I mean, I think you would agree with that.
I would 100% agree.
But to this point today, I think of you as being a very disciplined person, as in, like, generally a lot of things you're very disciplined about. One specific example I can think of, like, a positive moment that, like, you, I guess, was an indirect thing, but you do it. So that's what spurred on me to do it. Yeah. Is like reading the Bible every morning. I'm not a very big routine guy. Like, I hate monotony. That's like, if you have the list of things I hate, it's got to be up there. Like, I hate doing the same thing over and over. I like to switch it up. That's why I like to travel. I think a lot to do with that. So I like to do different things.
Right.
And I think it always, like, you know, I was like, nah, I don't want to like do the same thing in the Bible every day. But seeing you do it and seeing, like, you know, you and Zach talk about a lot, how you guys wake up, you read in the mornings, and you've just done it for a long time. Every single morning. It's the first thing you do.
Yeah.
And that is, and I was like, you know, I got to start trying this. So I started trying it, I don't know, a while back, and it's just, it really works. Like, I mean, it's dumb, but like, I've even suggested it for other people now, because although you can read it any time of the day, I think that's true. It's an easy way to start your day with something. I don't want to say you're getting it out of the way, but you know that you're going to do it if you do it first thing. Like, you know.
Yeah. I think it's a good thing to set your mind on first. Like, you kind of refresh. You wake up, you're like, God, you know, give me today my daily bread. Help me to focus on you. And that, like, starts off, at least in my experience, it started off my days like completely differently than if I don't do that. I feel like I'm way more agitated. I'm way more focused on the wrong things. Like, it's been a good discipline to have. And so it is encouraging to hear that that's That's something you picked up.
And same with you. I think if there's anything that you can do, I feel like I got to be able to do it. Like, there's no way. It's like that friendly competition. Like, there's no way.
I know what you mean. So
just wait till I start my Second King podcast.
Second King is crazy. Yeah, bro. No, we only serve one here. So
3 kings.
Oh. That's great. What relationship or relationships in your life have been the most impactful? And if it's not me, then what is it? Because
probably my relationship with God, to be honest.
Okay, that's fair. That's a fair question. It's a fair point.
No, I was just kidding.
What relationship in your life do you think has made such a pivotal role in what you do day to day? Like there's probably an obvious answer, but
yeah, I feel like I want to say my wife, but I feel like I'm also just definitely my wife. But I'm trying to think, what are you asking for here? I'm trying to answer the question properly.
I guess that's the answer. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
I guess
you were just looking for me to say that so you could ping to the next question, because I know the next question.
Yeah. So the next question is, when did you know that you were ready to get married?
That's a crazy question.
When was the day you woke up and you're like, yeah, it's time. I'm buying the ring tomorrow. And maybe
this was a question because you sent me the questions beforehand, and I saw this question and I was like, I feel like there wasn't a day that I knew, it was like, okay, today's the day type thing.
Yeah.
And maybe this is just, I'm realizing now that I say it out loud, this is how a lot of my relationships work. Like, even my walk with God, it's hard for me to pinpoint down and saying, this is the day where I was saved. For me, it's just a journey. And I feel like that's kind of the same way with my marriage. Like, that's kind of how it came about, is it was just a journey. I don't know exactly what day, but I wanted to marry this girl. And then so it was more just about when. But generally, I think of it as 2 steps. One, you have to know if you want to marry this person or not. That's the first question.
Right.
So do you want to actually be with this person for the rest of your life? The second question, is it the right time? So there's 2 questions. The first question had been answered for a lot longer. I knew I wanted to marry this person. And the timing, I think, can be the harder one. I think most of the time, and maybe this isn't always true, if this is a person you want to marry. Mm. The question is when.
I think we actually had this conversation a couple weeks back, maybe. It might have been in a podcast.
No, we did with Jackson.
Podcast, but
I'll put him on blast.
Yeah, it was with Jackson. I think you actually said it's okay to not know in that moment, but as long as you know before you get engaged, that's the most important.
Yeah, because let's be real,
sure.
You're not gonna know if you're gonna marry someone on the first date.
Right.
Maybe, but I would assume most of the time you don't know. Most of the time, you probably don't even know if you're gonna marry someone 6 months in. I would say on a normal relationship.
Potentially, yeah.
I mean, I would say it takes time to get to know people. Sure. I mean, even friends, it takes time to build friendship. In the same way, relationships, I generally think, take time to build trust. Just like any relationship. They take time to build trust. They take time to get to know the person's character. You can't just tell someone's character off one day,
right.
or off one week. It takes time. So I think answering that first question, you don't have to have it answered right now, but I do think knowing if you want to spend the rest of your life with the person you're with is a question you need to have answered before you propose. I wouldn't jump into that if you don't know if you want to spend the rest of your life with this person.
I think that's good. That's good advice for all the people in relationships out there listening to this podcast right now.
Now, the second question can be harder to answer. Is it the right time? So I think that's where you really have to seek God. And I don't want to jump too much into that.
Yeah. And I don't think you're ever going to be 100% ready. Like, I don't think anybody's ever 100% ready to get married or to, jump into a relationship or whatever. But you also have to know, at what point am I going to be ready? And you have to set those boundaries or those lines where you're like, hey, and some people might have ridiculous lines. Some people might be like, you are ready. You're just being too strict with it. But I think at the same time, you also have to understand you're never going to be 100% ready. And I've also heard this said, and I don't know if we want to go into full relationship podcast or whatever, but you always marry the wrong person. I've heard that. And I don't know if that's true or not, but I think it's an interesting thing to think about because I'm a perfectionist. I'm I got to know that I know that this is right. And if I have any inkling that this is wrong, it can just drive me up the wall. And I think that's something that I've had to wrestle with and give to God and say, hey, I think I get super hyper focused on the small details that don't necessarily matter. When all of these other things align, it feels clearly that God is pushing me in this direction, then why would I give this one thought any time of day? But I'm not going to say that there aren't things that you should take into heavy consideration and think about. So there's a line. I think. But
yeah, and I think too, you may not be fully ready for it, is what I'm trying to say, but you at least need to somewhat think you're ready for it. If you know I'm not ready for this, you can never be fully ready because you don't even know what's going to come.
Yeah.
But most people have doubts about anything in life. So to say that you're not going to have any doubts ever about your relationship is probably not true. But I do think that there's a general percentage of being, sure.
Right. And I don't think maybe this is not applicable advice to the situation, but something that I'm thinking about is like, you think about the people that God called. Just look at Moses, for example. He called Moses and it was a good thing. It's basically his purpose in life. Yeah. It was what God wanted him to do. And Moses was like, I'm not the guy. Like, you got the wrong guy. And I think in a lot of ways, like we can over stress when God wants us to do something. God is the one that qualifies us. Like, it's not on us.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And so we have to seek him. We have to continue to work at what he wants us to work at. At the end of the day, if he's called us to something and we feel that he's called us to something, then he's going to qualify us. So
I like that story that you gave because there's two things I noticed. Moses didn't feel confident. He had his doubts in it.
Right.
But he also heard God say it. So both are true. Like he was sure because God said it. I mean, God said it. So, but at the same time, he had doubts. So I think both can be true.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So what makes you work so hard? You are such a hard worker, bro. I genuinely...
The glaze is crazy. Re-ask the question.
No, I'm taking that back. But what makes you work so hard? Like, what drives you to work hard?
Interesting question. Because I sometimes think of myself as a hard worker. Sometimes I think I'm not that hard of a worker. So one thing that comes to mind, and this may not answer your question directly, but when I first came to God, we were talking a lot about our testimony. I was at a point in my life where this probably for a multitude of reasons that I don't even know yet. So I'm not trying to relay it all back to working hard. Yeah. But I remember low-key being pretty depressed and down bad at first because I felt like coming to God, like you kind of had to drop everything else, to be honest. Yeah. When I came back to realization, what's funny?
I'm sorry. I've just been laughing about the fact that you said, I'm sorry. You were like, I was depressed and down bad. I'm sorry. I totally derailed that.
Well, how far do you want me to go back?
I guess just at that part.
There could be a lot of reasons. So I don't want to say this is everyone's reason, but I also think that there is truth that we were designed to work hard, especially as men. I'm not trying to be misogynistic, but I think especially as men. So I think if you're not living how God designed you to live, things are going to go wrong. It's like, okay, think about it like this. If you never walked, if you never got up, you're going to start to have problems because God designed you to walk and to move for the most people. I understand that. Man, this is better. I'm not trying to be.
No, I see what you're saying. I see what you're getting at.
And I'm trying to say that hard work, I think that's how God designed us, especially I think that we were designed to do,
Right. And maybe a better example of this is our bodies were designed to eat and digest and the nutrients to sustain us and give us energy and life. And so if we don't eat, we're just going to die. So it's I think that's... Yeah,
but at the same time, hard work, life's not all about just working hard and never resting.
Funny you say this. I listened to a podcast today that was talking about working hard and stuff. But one of the main things that God told Adam in the first place was to tend to the garden, to work. We often think, we can run into this as Christians, I think, that the only thing that matters to God is souls, is not the world or anything else, because it's all going to burn away one day and it's not going to matter. But that's just not true. God created everything and he created it with a purpose.
And he said to tend to the garden. How did that save people?
And he created us to work and to tend to the animals, to tend to the world, to work hard. Not necessarily saying that everyone has to be farmers, but I'm saying, he created us to work.
If you're not doing something God created you to do, especially all humans, if you're not ever exercising, if you're not ever doing anything physical, you're going to get sick. If you don't work hard, there's going to be negative effects, to be honest. I'm going to be real. If you don't work, I'm not trying to sound legalistic or anything. I'm more just saying that it's something that God created us to do.
True.
And so I think that, I think there is a balance to it though, just like eating. You're not supposed to be eating 24/7, but God did create us.
Yeah.
Eating is part of life. I want to ask you a question.
Oh boy.
Let me think. In the last 1 to 2 years range,
okay,
what's one thing you feel like you've changed your mind on in your walk with Christ, and why?
Something I feel like and maybe this is not a great example, but something I have thought about is, and I think a lot of other Christians can get this idea too, especially when you start your walk with God, or I don't know where this comes from. Genuinely, it's not in the Bible, but that if it's just you and just God, that's all you need. You don't need friends. You don't need anybody else. You don't need accountability. You don't need community. You know, I think that has completely flipped in my opinion. And I think obviously community and all those things were always a thought in my mind as a good thing. I wish I had more community. I wish I had more accountability. That sounded good, but it was never something that I was like, oh, I need this. But now I think I'm in this perspective where if I did not have my friends, my community, my parents, my accountability, my whatever, I mean, if I didn't have that, then I don't think I would be where I am now. Like, I think God has used these people, these godly people in my life to sharpen me and to bring me closer to him. And I think ultimately, like, that's what like the church was made for, continually building up the body so that we can be more effective tools to reach the outside world. And I think if we're just doing it on our own, I'm not saying that, you know, God is not powerful enough to give you the resources needed, but I think one of the resources that we can neglect that he has given us is the church and the community. And so that's, I think, something that for me has shifted. Was that kind of what you were asking?
Yeah, that was a great answer. I mean, it was kind of an open-ended question, so there was no specific way that you had to answer. I was just curious. I want to ask you a question.
Cool. Well, that's my answer. So yeah, cool. Well, thank you, Nolan. This has been...
I'll be back next week. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, he's just permanently here for now. So, but yeah.
Who are we getting on as the next guest?
The next guest? I don't know.
No, I'm just kidding.
I can't share that yet. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys next episode. God bless.